Hello everyone, this is Leo from the Monkeys Making Misplays, and now that Divine Z's first set, Fated Clash, is officially released, we wanted to start doing set reviews to help both new and old players understand what is in each set. We will be doing one nation per video to better spread out the cards and not end up with an hour-long video. We will be providing timestamps for each of the 5 categories we've divided the cards into, which may change depending on the set, but for now those categories are New Ride Lines, Quick Start Deck Support, which will change to Divine Z Support after this set, Overdress Support, which is support for any of the ride lines from Overdress, Generic Support, and then finally we have Reprints and Promos. Alright, whether you started with this section or are joining us from the Lyrical Monasterio section, let's discuss the cards in Stoicheia. This nation did not receive a Divine Skill user, but we did get a new defensive Vanguard that uses Blitz orders, so that's pretty cool. That new unit is Lascaria Veleno. I don't know the full name because it's wordy. We're just actually saying the name, right? So a new Stoicheia deck, they again cares about orders, but at least this time it's Blitz orders, so you know, a slight shift, right? Let's start with the ride line. The grade 1 Lascaria, when wrote upon by the grade 2 Lascaria, lets you search your deck for a grade 2 or greater Blitz order without Regalis Piece and add it to hand. You want to have Blitz orders in your hand, so this is just a cool way to get it. It's not like a Soul Blast or anything. You just get it to you just get to search, so pretty good deck thinning. Then we've got the grade 2 Lascaria that, when wrote upon by the grade 3 Lascaria, lets you look at top 5 and either add a Blitz or a normal unit with Veleno to hand. So there's no usage for the ride line outside of the ride deck. They don't have second effect or anything like that. I guess technically you could play them if you wanted like another Veleno, but actually, now that I'm checking, I don't think they have Veleno in their name, because the Veleno is the name of the archetype essentially. Lascaria is just the name of the boss. But let's look at the boss girl herself. That is Lascaria Veleno. She has 2 abilities. The first grants your Veleno units plus 5k if you have 3 or more units with Veleno in their card names. If you have 5 or more and your opponent's Vanguard is at grade 3, she gains a crit. So she'll be critical. So that's pretty good. Being able to have some good offensive power is always nice. Her second ability triggers at the end of the battle your unit was attacked and was not hit. If you used a Blitz order that battle, you can draw a card, and if you haven't countercharged, you can countercharge one. So this is a deck that's looking to go into the grind game with a lot of defensive power, you know, a lot of like defensive choices, things like that. There's no multi-attack on her, right? I mean, we've seen her both abilities, but she does have a rear guard that will give her multi-attack. But before we move on to the units, let's look at the Blitz order. It's not specific to Lascaria, but obviously it's got her on the art, and you know, obviously it was made with her in mind, but it's not actually specific to her. But you know, it's a grade 2 Blitz order that you can Energy Blast 2 to choose a unit being attacked, and it gets plus 20k. Already very good. You can then play one more Blitz order that turn, so you can theoretically, excuse me, play up to 5 Blitz orders in a turn, as long as you play 4 of these and then 1 extra one. It's just a 20k shield, you know, and the deck's not using energy, so it's gonna be easy to just keep using these. You could even play some of the other energy cards because you're a little bit more free to do so. The cyclers could work in this deck a lot easier than in some of the other decks that have used energy. Hey, you want to keep being able to use Blitz orders so that you can keep drawing cards during your opponent's turn. Obviously it's only one-time counter charge, but that's still really good. Then we have her normal unit support, starting with the grade 1 floor. That when placed on rearguard, if you have Vanguard with Lascaria, you can counterblast 1 to check top 5, choose up to 1 card with Veleno or Blitz order, and put it into your hand. She also gains plus 2k if you have Vanguard with Lascaria. So a nice way to deck thin effectively, and with your Vanguard essentially countercharging 1 every turn, or every opponent's turn, you get to be a little bit more greedy. You know, you're going to have a constant source of countercharging. Your Blitz orders not using CB is really good as well. Then we have the grade 2 Miliao, that when placed on rearguard other than during the battle phase, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Lascaria, you can discard a card from your hand to choose a card with a different card from this card from drop and call it to rearguard if it's a unit card with Veleno, or add it to hand if it's a Blitz order. So you got a way to recur Blitz orders, or you know, just get your units back to get the names you need for Lascaria herself. And then the last card is the multi-attacker, and that is a grade 3 Eraphis, which is the only way this deck can get multi-attack. So at the end of the battle, your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Lascaria attacked. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can counterblast 1 to stand it, and if you have 3 or more units with Veleno, he gains plus 5k. The deck has a bit of everything, and I think it could see some success if we get some more support. I know we've got, I think, 2 or 3 cards coming out for it in set 2. Definitely a very cool deck. I love defensive decks. They're much more interesting than the decks that go for offense. I feel like Overdress, or I guess the D format, has shifted to this like just as quickly as you can finish the game. So these decks that kind of want to go into the longer, grindier game are having a hard time. But Lascari, I think, is a good shift towards that, and I actually really like it. And Cat's gonna build it. We're just missing one copy of this, but you know, we just as of recording, I worked out a deal with some guy where we're getting the last cards we need. So hopefully those decks can be done. But with that, we have finished the new red line section. Let's move on to the quick start deck section. In this section, we've got support for the quick start deck boss Cristianos, who received a total of 4 cards. The first card is the grade 1 for the red line. That is Strawberry, who can draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards when wrote upon by Variety Feast Dragon. It shares the plus 5k effect with all the other grade 1 red line units, as long as your Vanguard is the corresponding quick start deck. So in this case, Cristianos, it gains plus 15k, 13k booster, 13k attacker, both good. Next, we have the grade 2 Variety Feast Dragon. When wrote upon by Cristianos, lets you choose a grade 1 or less from drop, call it to rear guard. Doesn't cost anything, pretty good. So in Brave Red Recursion, that's what the Cristianos deck is trying to do. And it's also got the extra 10k shield ability, which it's not, makes this like not an awful ride line. You can play the what is it, the discard grade 2 that we'll talk about later to Soul Blast both of these. Much easier in this deck because, I mean, you can just get them back with your Cristianos. A lot of the other decks don't have recursion. I mean, I know Cristianos does, and I know Sarvasail has, but that's kind of it. So another good ride line in my opinion. Then we've got a grade 2, and that is Philanthia, that gains plus 10k when placed on rearguard from drop if your Vanguard is Cristianos. It doesn't need to be placed by Cristianos, so it just needs your Vanguard to be. So if you have any other order that can resurrect it, this is a good way to just get yourself a solid 20k attacker. But let's look at his backup grade 3 to see if it fixes the main issue that Cristianos had of no multi-attack, and that is the backup grade 3 Hunter Severin, that when placed from drop gains plus 10k, but it will be retired at the end of turn. This second ability triggers his second ability triggers when it attacks. You can Soul Blast one to have him gain plus 5k. Then if your Vanguard is standing and you Soul Blast a card with Cristianos, you can stand him at the end of the battle he attacked. So this means the deck has access to a 4th attack, even a 5th attack if you can put 2 Cristianos in Soul. I think that's one of the biggest additions that I would add to the quick start decks. If your nation, regardless of which one it is, has a way to put something from drop into Soul or from hand into Soul, you know, you could definitely play those to get the grade 3 effects to go off more often, which I think is definitely cool. You know, you get a huge buff if you can do those backup grade 3 effects. Very good. This card is incredible. It's a 23k attacker that becomes a 28k attacker, and then it restands. If you're persona writing, that's a 38k attacker that restands. That's going to be really good. Definitely a strong card. I think this is one of the better ones. I think the Keter one we spoke about 2 episodes ago, definitely the best one. But this being able to do so much for the deck is really good. It gets itself off board so that it opens it up, and then you resurrect it next turn with Cristianos. You know, it restands, it's got power. It's a very good card. I think this is one of the good ones. Now that we've concluded the quick start deck section, we're going to move on to the Overdress Support, which this is one of the ones that I think has the most, the nations with the most support in it, and that's because they're supporting Magnolia. Or more specifically, they're trying to support Magnolia Elder and trying to shift away from Mask, which, you know, I don't know. I feel like Mask is probably the better of the 2 decks, but, you know, we've got to test it out. They're both decks that rely on writing up from the grade 3 Magnolia, the original one, you know, but Mask can do it right away. Magnolia Elder will have to go second, or else they can't do it, because the grade skipper requires your opponent to be at grade 3. But we got a total of 4 cards here, with 2 being an update to the original ride line. Literally just the same units, just got new effects, right? The support does work from the Magnolias, but there is a clear hint that they kind of want you to play it with Elder. But first, let's look at the updated ride line first, starting with the update to Karis. Now, when he's rode upon by the grade 2 Sylvanhorn Beast, this one doesn't require you to be ridden by anything else. You can look at top 30 cards of your deck, choose a grade 2 or less normal unit, call it to rearguard. Then you can either choose to discard the other cards or put them on the bottom of the deck. So now you get a choice of what to do, and if you hit 3 normal units, you can just discard them and then bring them back later with some of the other support that Magnolia has had prior, or some of the stuff we're going to see after this. Let's move on to the grade 2 revamp for Latsis, which now, instead of being a blind call from the top of your deck, lets you Soul Blast one when wrote upon by Magnolia to choose a grade 3 or greater card or normal order from drop and add it to your hand. So you can either return something you have discarded, or an order from drop and add it to hand. So, you know, you get choice. I feel like that's such a That's so much better. I love when ride lines give you choices instead of just being like, nope, you just got to do this. That's it. Oh, Juef, that's unfortunate. That was what a lot of the original ride lines did. Like, if you remember the Nirvana one, you could only call Trickstar, and then that was good because that's what the deck wanted. But then the grade 2 for the longest time was just like, sorry, you have to go search your deck for a Virina, and it's not any Virina, it's only that grade 2 one from the child deck, which forced a lot of decks to have to play that. The Magnolia one as well. Magnolia was one of the ones that I was really lackluster. When we did the Magnolia mass stack profile a while back, we didn't even play any of the ride line units besides like the starter, because we just thought like, hey, the ride line's not going to give us anything. At least the cards we put in there can be units that come back or give some sort of effect, and it worked so much better. But, you know, they also did attach a power 5k plus 5k power boost if your Vanguard's Magnolia effect on it, so you can use him as an attacker if you really need to. I don't think you're going to play that for more than just a ride line, but, you know, it's cool that they gave it. If worst comes to show, you have to bring it back with like another effect, you know, it's a 15k attacker. Besides the updated ride line, Magnolia got 2 new main deck cards, and those are Ilkenwin and Banaspati. Those names, I swear to God, that are both grade 2s. First up is Ilkenwin, that has 1 effect, which triggers when it's placed on rearguard, and your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater Magnolia. You can Soul Blast 1, discard a card to search your deck, or drop for up to 1 Magnolia with a different name, or up to 1 grade 0 normal order, and add it to your hand. So this is a way to find your Elder, but I think, personally, this is great in Magnolia Mass, because that can also be found with this, which makes the Mass deck even more consistent. And unlike an Elder where we'll just be stuck on the grade 4, the Mass version lets you ride into the original Magnolia again and then use Ilkenwind again to find your Mass form. And since it costs a soul, you can just Soul Blast the Mask, or even just discard it for the cost, making it so you can just play the Mask again, activate the, or do the effect, ride the Magnolia Mask, and then you get to activate Persona Ride every turn, guaranteed, while also being able to like trigger incredibly effective, or deck thin incredibly effectively. I think this card's going to do a lot more in the Mask version, but you know, being able to fetch your Elder is also going to be good. You have to be able to have it in hand for the Grade Skipper, if I remember correctly. But then let's talk about the last card, Banaspati, which has 2 effects. The first triggers when it's placed on rearguard. Other than during the battle phase, you can counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 to choose one of your Vanguards with Sylvan Beast, and for every 2 grades of that unit, you can call a grade 3 or less card from drop to rearguard. So in Elder, you can call 2 units, but in OG, Magnolia, or Mass, you can only call 1, which is not a great rate. This is a way to keep cycling your inlet pulses, but you can't call a copy of Banaspati with this ability, so it's not a permanent loop. You have to have something else to call this, and then that'll call something else. The second effect also leans toward Elder, with him being able to gain plus 5k for every 2 grades of your Sylvan Beast Vanguard. So with Elder, he becomes a 20k, and on the others he's just he becomes a 10k, and with the others he just gains plus 5k because it's for every 2 grades. I think Elder will probably play this card, but the other 2 might not want to, and most of their cards are just better. I mean, Mask literally has a, when this is placed on rear, CB1 call up to the Dragon Tree markers you have, which is just so much better than this, right? Why would you play that? I think that also gives power to your Vanguard, so much better card. But with that, we are done with the Overdress section. We are now going to move into the generic section. I think this is one of the nations with the least generic cards, because, you know, we saw Magnolia got a bunch of cards. Vanilla also got a bunch of cards. You know, the Quick Start deck had 4 cards, unlike some of the other ones that have only had 3. But we'll start with the Cycler like we've done before. Similar to the set 10 Cyclers, when discarded from hand while riding from your ride deck, you can Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. However, unlike those original Cyclers, you can also use these abilities when they're put on Guardian Circle, which means you can replace it for free if your deck doesn't use energies. However, these Cyclers will not put themselves on the bottom of the deck like the original, so once they're discarded, you're going to have to find another way to get them back. You're not going to be able to just get them back. Then they have an on-place skill that triggers, so when C Rumble Brave Shooter is placed on rearguard, you can either Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 if you Persona Road to choose a grade 2 or less normal unit with a different name from this unit and without Sentinel from drop, or an order card from drop and add it to hand, then you discard a card. This is just a way to get yourself pieces back if your deck is a very unit or order intensive, so maybe Lascaria might want something like this because it doesn't say normal order, it just says order, so this way you can get Blitz. Again, definitely pick these up. I know you might think, oh, this effect's not that great or it's only mid. Pick these up, please. If you are watching all of these, or if you watched any of these set breakdowns so far, you'll know that I can't recommend you pick up anything more or something more than these Cyclers. I didn't pick up the set 10s ones, and I regret that so much. You know, I was in one of those moments where I was not really playing the game that much, and I didn't pay attention to it, and boy howdy do I regret that. You know, I think the only complete set of cyclers we have are the Dragon Empire ones and the Brandgate ones, but the Brandgate ones, you know, I kind of had to fight tooth and nail at the time to get them because no one wanted to get rid of them. It was at the time where Ava was using it so effectively that they just kind of, no one wanted to get rid of it. Obviously Ava can still use it very effectively, but it is one of those things where please just pick these cards up. You know, you're probably gonna like use them later on, or a deck is gonna come out and you're gonna be like, those cyclers are so good, I should have just used them when I had the chance. But with that out of the way, let's move on to the grade 1 cycle, which is Dionysia. This grade 1 unit can counterblast 1 if you push on a road to look at top 3 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 3 or less unit card from among them, call it to rear guard. You discard the other cards and then she gains plus 5k. A nice way to fill up your drop and call an extra unit. In something like Cristianos, this would help you fill out the drop to have some better targets for being revived. I don't know if you're going to want this in a lot of decks. People don't like the blind discarding because, you know, you could just discard 3 triggers. You could just hit 3 triggers off the top. So, you know, it's going to be a little rough. I think I would recommend picking up all the grade 1s. This one is one that I would say you could go without, you know. Now we're going to talk about the orders we got, which is only a normal order because we already discussed the Blitz order earlier. And this one is similar to all the other ones we've seen before. It costs Energy Blast 2 to choose a rear guard, and it gets at the end of your turn, if the total number of attacks this turn was 4 or more, draw a card, and then the unit gains plus 5k. So you can sort of turn any unit into an inlet pulse, except you don't get the soul from it, unless that unit puts itself into soul, obviously. But you do get some extra power. I could see this in some of the lower power Stoicheia decks to get some extra card draw. This is a decent order, but with Stoicheia already having so many good orders, you know, the competition is a bit fierce in this area. Then we have the last 3 cards for this section, which are the 3 cards we've discussed in every other section, so we're just going to speed through these really quickly. We've got Sunbathing Dragon, which is the grade 1 that when it boosts, if your drop has 10 or more cards, you can counterblast 1 and Energy Blast 2 to draw a card and gains plus 5k. His ability is pretty much the same across all the other versions except the condition changes. So for this one, you have to have 10 or more cards because, you know, it's kind of supposed to be played in Cristianos, so that makes sense. The next grade 1 is Scissor Scorpio, which when discarded during the raid phase, you can call it to rear guard or rest. Same effect across all the other ones. If you can't afford cyclers, this is a good option for that. The last card is the grade 2 Chasarls. That lets you Soul Blast 2 to draw a card when it's discarded from hand during the raid phase. Again, this effect has been identical to all the other ones we've seen in all the other nations. Play this in like Cristianos because being able to Soul Blast your units just means you have more targets and drop. Pretty good card. But with that, we're done with the generic section. We are now going to move on to the promos, or the reprints and promos. And in this section, we've only got 3 cards. You know, you've probably already realized like no nation got more than 1 promo. But you know, the first reprint we got is the Overtrigger. Stoicheia Overtrigger gets you a crit, draws your card, heals you, gives you a front, all those things. It's cool. Play it if you want that effect, or you know, just try it out. The second reprint is the Perfect Guards. Again, they're technically new cards, but it's just different name and different art, but it's on a effect that it's just the normal PG effect. You know, don't worry about that. I don't think Overtriggers and Perfect Guards ever being reprinted are going to be a bad thing, so this is just fine. And then we did get a promo for this nation, but it is just a reprint promo. Nonetheless, it's still good. That's Mythiarch Habitat, a card that sees play in quite a few of the Stoicheia decks that play orders because they like the filtering it provides. You know, it just lets you check top 7, call something, and then if you're searching for like a unit, you can get this or get it as well. It's a cool card. You know, try to get yourself a set. They're incredibly cheap now. I think we checked on TCG Player. They're like maybe like $3, $2. I would recommend you get a set of these as well. It's just a good generic order that doesn't cost soul or CB, anything like that. But with that, we are done with the main 6 nations. God, it took me so long to get these done, and you know, a lot of like late nights trying to get these done. I think I've already talked with, or I've already said before, but I am in the process of like moving out and getting a new job, and you know, it's just a lot of things happening at once. My PC almost exploded. But we have one last section to get done, and that is Bang Dream and the Cray Elementals. You know, those 2 will be put in the same video because I'll probably just do them like super quickly and then get those done. But thank you all for watching. I hope to see you in the last part. Goodbye.